Welcome to another video. I am Michael with Sideline Sports if you're new here, and today I am doing a redraft of the 2016 NFL Draft. 2016 NFL Draft was one of those interesting ones in where, a quarterback usually goes first due to positional value, but Jared Goff went first and Carson Wentz went second. Two quarterbacks who did not live up to expectations, have had really good years and really bad years, some worse than others. Obviously, Carson Wentz has become a backup since the injury, and Jared Goff has kind of revamped his career. So I kind of just want to go over it. Positional value is going to be weighted, but I want to mainly focus on BPA. I would say the scale is like 65 to 70 BPA, and then 35 to 30% positional need. I am also doing the draft order based on where teams actually picked. So if a team picked, if they were slotted in at 15th coming into the draft, but they traded down, I'm going to pick for them where they traded down. Apologies for that. Carl has allergies, but we are using NFLmockdraftdatabase.com for it. It is the best mock draft simulator for 2016 that I could find. Now, the Rams are sitting here at pick 1, and they needed a quarterback. This isn't a situation where the quarterback was the best player available and they needed one. No, they just needed a quarterback. And the best quarterback from that draft class is none other than Dak Prescott, or Pac Descott. So I am going to go ahead, start the draft, and take Dak Prescott to the Los Angeles Rams with pick 1. Now, the Eagles' offense at this point in time was looking pretty bleak, just not getting anything done, and they needed a quarterback, but there are no quarterbacks, in my opinion, worth taking at the 2 spot here over BPA, who, in my opinion, is Tyreek Hill out of West Alabama. There are a couple options here. You could go Tyreek Hill. You could go Jalen Ramsey. You could go Chris Jones, Joey Bosa, Derrick Henry. Ultimately, I'm going with Tyreek Hill so that in years following, the quarterback that they do draft will actually have somebody to throw the ball to. Look at how far we have to go down to find Tyreek Hill. Braylon Addison, Oregon legend. Byron Marshall, Oregon legend. He started as a running back. Anyways, nobody cares. Where is Tyreek Hill? Tyreek Hill in this system is rated as the 586th best player. So I'm going to go ahead and draft him at 2. Reach! Now, the Chargers were going through a sort of retool with Phillip Rivers going into the last years of his career. And with a pocket passer, you need some serious O-line help. Now, if you remember correctly, this is the infamous Laramie Tunsil gas mask year. And I think without that, he was probably definitely going top 3. He ended up sliding, and it ended up being a non-factor in his career. So we're going to go ahead and draft Laramie Tunsil. Joey Bosa is great. He's a fantastic player. Unfortunately, his vacation home is a hospital bed. So we're going to go with Laramie Tunsil. Now, the Dallas Cowboys, I remember I was 15 years old. Let me bring in full screen. I was 15 years old, and I fully expected the Dallas Cowboys to go with Jalen Ramsey and not Ezekiel Elliott. I was more than confident in that happening, and it didn't. That ends today. Ezekiel Elliott is not going to the Dallas Cowboys, and instead it will be Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey. So far, can we see the draft so far? I don't think so. But so far, we are at pick 5, and we have taken... Who did we take? I can't even remember. Dak Prescott to the Los Angeles Rams, Tyreek Hill to the Philadelphia Eagles, Laramie Tunsil to the Los Angeles Chargers, and Jalen Ramsey to the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Jaguars are on the clock, and they took Ramsey, of course. That was their original pick. What do they need? They needed defensive help in the worst way. And it sucks for them that Jalen Ramsey came off the board, because he was an intricate part in getting them to the AFC Championship game in 2017. With that being said, Mississippi State defensive lineman Chris Jones was also an intricate part in 3 Chiefs Super Bowls. So I'm going to go ahead and draft Chris Jones for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Ravens are on the clock, and they're probably kicking themselves that Laramie Tunsil is gone already. So where do they go here? What are the best options? The team needs were offensive tackle, edge, cornerback, linebacker. They were trying to really build a new identity on defense after the Ray Lewis and Ed Reed days had come to a close. That's why I think Oregon defensive tackle DeForest Buckner would be a great pick for them. Somebody to provide interior pass rush while also being a huge presence in the run game, can clog multiple gaps. DeForest Buckner is a very prototypical Ravens player. And if you remember correctly, they originally drafted Ronnie Stanley, who is actually still on the team, and he's a plus player, but I think DeForest Buckner fits the bill better. Now we have the San Francisco 49ers on the clock, who ended up taking a pick at pick 7 and pick 28. The original pick was DeForest Buckner for the 49ers here, but he is off the clock, or off the board. So, with Chris Jones and DeForest Buckner both off the board, we have to go elsewhere. This, in my opinion, is where Joey Bosa goes, which is ironic considering that his brother currently plays for the 49ers. There you have it, Joey Bosa to the San Francisco 49ers. The Tennessee Titans needed offensive line help. They needed defensive line help. They needed the trenches. With Marcus Mariota being a year in, they needed somebody to protect him. And they originally took Jack Conklin, who wasn't a bust, just wasn't a huge boom type of player. But Ronnie Stanley, in my opinion, would have been a great pick here. But too bad, so sad, the fall ends now. Derrick Henry is going here at 8 to the Tennessee Titans. Positional value is the only reason Derrick Henry is still on the board and wasn't the number 1 overall pick. So he is going here at 8 to his original team, who got him in the 2nd round. Chicago kind of in the same boat. They needed trenches. They needed a quarterback. I mean, they've always needed a quarterback. Do they go Jared Goff here? They originally went with Leonard Floyd, who's had a solid career as kind of that journeyman type player in the NFL, but always been very productive no matter where he goes. I'm going to go for the Chicago Bears defensive lineman Kenny Clark. A 3-tech out of UCLA, provides that necessary interior rush while also being an excellent run stuffer. True Bears type player. NFC North type player. There you have it right here, Kenny Clark to the Bears. The Giants are on the clock at pick 10, and they needed a stalwart left tackle, and this is where I have Ronnie Stanley going. I was really tempted to go Javon Hargrave here, but ultimately I think protecting Eli Manning in the final years of his career becomes the utmost importance to the New York Giants. And if you remember correctly, originally the Giants went with Ohio State cornerback Eli Apple. So this is a huge upgrade. And we got Ronnie Stanley to the Giants here. Now on the clock is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers needed any type of defensive help. This was a year after they took Jameis Winston, who was throwing to Mike Evans. They really didn't have a problem on the offensive side of the ball. They originally selected Florida cornerback Vernon Hargreaves. So, I mean, think about that. Eli Apple and Vernon Hargreaves went back to back. Now, they still had Gerald McCoy. I don't think the interior of their line is the biggest concern, which is the reason why I'm not going Javon Hargrave. I'm actually going to go with a guy who became a legend in South Beach, Xavier Howard, the cornerback out of Baylor. And we got on the board right here, Xavier Howard going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and now their division rival, the New Orleans Saints, are on the clock. Now put yourself in 2016 Saints' shoes. Drew Brees is aging. We don't know how many years he has left, but he's aging, but still playing at a peak. Can we squeeze out one more run at the Super Bowl with him? The answer was, you had the talent, just didn't happen. It should have happened in that infamous pass interference year. They had defensive struggles, okay? There was no problem on the offensive side of the ball. They were able to sling it. Drew Brees, maybe you could draft a quarterback in the later rounds to show the ropes, but they needed defensive help. They originally took Sheldon Rankins out of Louisville, but I'm going to give them Javon Hargrave here. Javon Hargrave to the New Orleans Saints, and now we have the Miami Dolphins on the clock. The Dolphins needed Xavier Howard, I'll tell you that much. They actually originally went with Laramie Tunsil. Now you think about the Dolphins offense, what do they have? They have Ryan Tannehill, they have Devontae Parker, and they have Jarvis Landry. They didn't have an elite rushing attack, but it wasn't necessarily a weakness. I would still venture to guess that they wanted to add to the defensive line and the front seven in general. However, there is not really a front seven player worth taking in this spot. So I think you add to the offense. And do we take Michael Thomas with what we know now about his injuries? I probably wouldn't with the 13th overall pick. Call me crazy, but I am going to take Ezekiel Elliott. I think he can elevate that offense to compete with the New England Patriots in that division, even for that short period of time. You know, his rookie year, his first 3 or 4 seasons, watch out. We're going to take Ezekiel Elliott and put him on the Miami Dolphins. Next up on the clock is the Las Vegas Raiders. What do they go? They need just about everything. They have Derek Carr and nothing else really that I can think of back then. They went with Carl Joseph, and I'm actually going to stick at safety. It's either Kevin Byard or Justin Simmons. That's tough. I'm going to go Justin Simmons. I'm going to go Justin Simmons out of Boston College for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, this is a layup. This is where positional value comes into play. Jared Goff has to go to the Cleveland Browns at pick 15. Pick 16 is the Detroit Lions, who originally went with Taylor Decker. Do they stick with Taylor Decker? I actually have them going with one of the best pass-protecting interior offensive linemen nearly 10 years later in Joe Thuney. And there he is, the 137th ranked player out of NC State, Joe Thuney, going to the Detroit Lions. Atlanta Falcons. This is getting close to the 28-3 year. What could we add that they didn't have in that Super Bowl? We could probably add second half offense, but realistically, we know their offense was pretty sharp back then. They needed defensive help. They originally took safety Keanu Neal, and I have them sticking at safety, but going with Kevin Byard out of Middle Tennessee State. The Colts are now on the clock in a pick that they originally went with a center in Ryan Kelly, which is, looking back on it, that is a really, really early pick to take a center. I can't tell if this is a reach or not. I feel crazy, but I really want to go with Graham Glasgow instead of Ryan Kelly, and that's what I'm going to do. So Graham Glasgow goes at pick 18 to the Indianapolis Colts. Correct me if anybody thinks that's crazy. Now we've got Tyrod Taylor. Now we have the Buffalo Bills. This is peak Tyrod Taylor years. And I believe this is the Shaq Lawson pick, if I'm not mistaken. Shaq Lawson out of Clemson. Carl's here. And they needed that defensive line help. So who do they go with here? In my opinion, they go with the most underrated defensive player in the NFL in the last decade, and that's DJ Reader. Big body, defensive tackle, real run stuffing, maintains incredible gap integrity. He will completely revitalize that Bills defensive front alongside Kyle Williams. So drafted DJ Reader. Now division rival New York Jets are on the clock. They need a quarterback. Is there even a quarterback available? Let's see. Carson Wentz, Paxton Lynch. The answer is no. The answer is definitely not. There's really no good receiving options available, and there's no good quarterback options available. But what we can do is put the pieces in place for next year's offense to succeed. So let's go out and let's get an offensive tackle to make next year's rookie quarterback a little bit easier. So Taylor Decker out of Ohio State, you are a New York Jet. With the Houston Texans on the clock, I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to go Michael Thomas here to the Houston Texans. They get a few amazing seasons out of him before injuries cut his career short. Washington Commanders on the clock. They went TCU wide receiver Josh Doctson here. There's just no way they can go Josh Doctson again, obviously. So let's take a look at the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to go with edge rusher Matthew Judon for the Washington Commanders. Vikings are on the clock, and they infamously went with Ole Miss wide receiver Laquan Treadwell. Never had a chance of doing anything with them. Hear me out. They needed secondary help really bad, and they needed wide receiver help really bad, but there's no good wide receivers. The best wide receiver option is Will Fuller, Tyler Boyd, Demarcus Robinson. So for me, it's either Yannick Ngakoue or Jalen Mills. Who would have a bigger impact for the team? I'm starting to talk myself out of it. They already had Harrison Smith. I don't think you need two elite safeties before you need to pick up some elite edge rushing. And I know Yannick Ngakoue on here is under defensive line, but he transformed more into a prolific edge rusher in his day. So I'm going to go Yannick Ngakoue out of Maryland. With the Bengals on the clock, they originally went with Jackson III, who I thought had some great years for the Bengals, and he got a payday eventually. I just don't think it's the move they would make present day. With so many safeties off the board, do they go Von Bell? Do they go Jalen Mills? I don't know. Is there any linebackers worth taking? I didn't take any notes, so I'm just doing this all off the cuff. Scooby Wright was legendary at Arizona, man. Blake Martinez, Casanova McKenzie is probably the hardest name I've ever seen in my entire life. I think I'm gonna go Leonard Floyd here. I think he's a solid edge rusher, and we see in the years following how edge rusher really became the demise of, or defense in general became the demise of the Cincinnati Bengals. I think Leonard Floyd could really help them. Original pick here for the Pittsburgh Steelers at round one, pick 25 was Artie Burns out of Miami. That didn't work out. A lot of these defensive linemen in this class became like really just steady backups, but nobody really that is a difference maker. Ryan Kelly is a center, and they still had Pouncey, so I'm not really interested in going Kelly, but I will go Cody Whitehair. And I think putting him on the interior next to Pouncey keeps that offense clean for a while to come, and I think we just ignore defense because there's nothing worth taking right now. As you can see on your screen, the Broncos needed quarterback and tight end. Nothing going for them in this class. And actually, the best tight end was Hunter Henry. Yeesh. So I'm gonna look at safety, and I'm gonna pull the trigger on Jalen Mills. I think, a solid player, versatile defensive back, could play corner too in a pinch, and he was part of a Super Bowl winning team. Now, the original pick here for the Packers was Kenny Clark. He's obviously off the board. I'm going to go with Jarron Reed, who has been a solid player throughout his career. Yeah, he's never been a huge sack guy, but that's not what you need out of an interior defensive lineman. Give me Jarron Reed. Now, back to the 49ers. They've already had a pick. They took Joey Bosa, the edge rusher. So now who do we go with? Who's the best available? I'm going to go with Ryan Kelly here, the center out of Alabama. He's a great, solid center, and the 49ers needed it. So give me Ryan Kelly to the 49ers. James Bradbury had a solid career. Put him in the slot in the Arizona Cardinals defense. I think that would have been awesome. He had, not a great last few years in the league, but his peak was up there with the best of them at the position. Carolina with the 30th overall pick. A great team. What do they need? They needed to add a little bit on defense, I think. And do you go William Jackson here? Probably not. Matt Ioannidis. I don't think he sneaks into the first round. I'm actually going to go with Notre Dame linebacker Jalen Smith. Again, one of those guys that had a huge peak, and injuries kind of derailed his career, but I think his athleticism was always there, and I don't think he got a fair shot after returning from injury, so I'm going to go Jalen Smith. And then the Seattle Seahawks picking the last pick of the round, a draft that only had 31 picks. Let's go. You know what? I'm gonna stop the skid here. I'll go. I'll bite. Is there anybody else that I would take? No. I'm gonna go with Jack Conklin out of Michigan State. It won't let me review the draft, but if you enjoyed that, feel free to hit like. I have to go, so I'm not gonna review everything. But if you liked it, make sure to subscribe. I'm gonna try to do this for every draft class, so feel free to subscribe. Watch all the film breakdowns on my channel, the draft grades. I love doing draft stuff, love talking football. If you watched, I love you very much. If you subscribed, I love you even more, and I'll see you next time. Adios.